What's going on, guys, and welcome to the Armchair Fantasy Show. We have a great guest tonight coming on, so stay tuned.
Fantasy football, you dealing with the best. Keep it hype, authentic, this ain't nothing like the rest. With the Armchair Fantasy Show podcast, give advice for all the listeners to improve your stats. Yeah, we live on goingfor2.com. Tuesdays and Fridays, this is what you want. Talking dynasties and daily drafts, and we just getting started, that ain't even the half. Yeah, so go ahead, tell your friends to join. Going for two, cause no one remembers the extra point. Hey, goingfor2.com, the Armchair Fantasy Show.
All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 136 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Jeff Lambert. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. We're here every Tuesday and Friday night on Facebook Live, Periscope, and YouTube. Of course, syndicated on all your podcast networks and streaming in the Going for Two app for iOS and Android. I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Mr. Ryan Searfoss. Ryan, how you doing tonight, man?
Fantastic. We got some news, with the Combine happening. Basically done with the draft guide that I've been working on with Dynasty Draft Room. We have 91 player profiles.
Nice. For
all rookies now, plus traits and descriptions to everyone, all the Combine information. It's only $10. Check it out.
Good stuff.
So happy we're done with it.
It's one of those things, yeah. It's great when you're working on it, and then after you're done, you're like, oof, thank God it's over with.
Yeah.
All right, for fans of the show, I don't know if you noticed or not, but Ryan is in full HD tonight. He got a nice little webcam for us, so we can see his beautiful face now a little bit better and clearer than we used to be able to.
Hopefully get some female viewers up.
All right, and the next guy we have here, our guest tonight, really needs no introduction. This guy's everywhere. If you play Dynasty, you probably read some of his stuff, maybe listened to a podcast of his, seen him on Twitter. He's everywhere. Mr. Ryan McDowell of DynastyLeagueFootball.com. You can follow him on Twitter at RyanMC23. Ryan, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing really well. Excited to hang out with you guys for a little while and talk some fantasy.
Definitely. So you have some pretty exciting stuff that you just you came off the Combine, your first Combine. Give us a little bit of what happened down there and what you thought of it.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, like you said, it's first chance I've had to get to go to the Combine. A couple of us from DLF went, and we got to see the on-field events for the wide receivers and tight ends. Got to do a little bit of the interview sessions with the defensive backs. That was pretty cool. The access we were able to get with that, and really the best part for me was just getting to meet some other people in the fantasy industry and the in the NFL draft industry, I guess you could say, those people that follow the draft year round. So getting to meet those people that we interact with on Twitter was very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I heard a story that you mentioned on one of your podcasts. If you can kind of share our listeners about who you saw when you first got to the hotel and then who you saw when you left.
Yeah, it was certainly a wild experience. I didn't really know what to expect going in, but get into town, go straight to my hotel, and I'm already seeing players walk up and down the streets. You can't miss them, and walk into the hotel, and Jerry Jeudy is standing there.
Nice.
Right as soon as I walk in the door. So that was like baptism by fire. Like, okay, this is what it's going to be like. People everywhere that you recognize and that you've watched on Saturdays or maybe even on Sundays, because a couple days later when I was leaving, standing basically in the same spot at the hotel was Jerry Rice. So I see Jerry Jeudy, and then I see Jerry Rice a couple days later.
Nice.
So and a lot of folks in between. It was very nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
so for the few listeners that don't know who you are, kind of give us a rundown of what you do over at DLF and just kind of your history in fantasy in general.
Sure, I've been playing fantasy Dynasty, I guess, for about 15 years now, maybe a little bit longer.
Wow.
Yeah. I actually started playing Dynasty. That was, most people, I guess, start with redraft, but I started with Dynasty. So it's basically all I've ever known. Was always really like the most active player in my leagues. Hung out on message boards like Football Guys message board, and was super active over there and hanging out in conversations and things. And then when Twitter came around, that was really a game changer for me. started that in, I guess, 2009, maybe 2010. Was invited to join DLF as a writer in 2012, I believe. Yeah, that's right, 2012. And yeah, just kind of been climbing the ladder ever since. Last July, I was made a part owner of the site. So
nice.
Kind of wearing a different hat since then, making some decisions and being taking on a little bit more of a leadership role, I guess, and taking a step back from writing, which I'm kind of missing. I'm going to have to get back to churning out some content.
Definitely.
As well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Do some work for Roto World as well. But yeah, that's kind of what I do.
Awesome stuff, man. I love it. All right, well, we got a jam-packed show tonight, and for the sake of this podcast, my co-host Ryan Steerfoss is going to go by his nickname tonight, Foss. So I'm not confusing the two Ryans together. So just so y'all know, when I say Foss, that's who I'm talking to. All right, let's go ahead and just jump right into the news and notes.
News and notes from around the league.
All right, so right at the top here, the big one that's going around right now, of course, is all about Tom Brady and where he's going to end up. And Foss, we're going to go to you first on this one with the Brady rumors that are possibly going to the 49ers. Let's just assume that it does happen. What does that do for their skill players over there with the 49ers? You think it helps their value or hurts their value? What does it do?
Honestly, I don't know how much difference it's going to be. I mean, they may try to pass a little bit more, but he's still 42 years old now. And he's slowing down a little bit. I think it's going to be good for whoever they're rolling in the slot, which hopefully ends up being Debo still. But, yeah. I mean, I can't see it being that much different. Maybe he ran a little bit better, but how much different is he at this point of his career than Garoppolo? All time, yes, but now,
Yeah, good point. What about you, Ryan? What do you think of this possible move to the 49ers?
Yeah, I'm just not sure it makes much sense either. Certainly would be a risky move. I mean, I know Jimmy G has a big contract, but it sounds like Brady's looking for $30 million for per year for a year or two. So you're paying him more. I'm not sure he's better at this point, like Ryan said, and then when he does retire after 2020 or maybe after 2021, I guess, then what? Now you're looking again, and you're trying to fill the biggest hole in the game is finding that elite starting quarterback. So it just doesn't make sense. I'm still having a hard time seeing him anywhere but New England, honestly.
I agree. And don't you think if he'd go to San Fran for 1 year, Jimmy G would just be super disgruntled?
Well, yeah, they actually with the contract that he has, I know it's a huge contract, but they say they can cut Jimmy G with basically no dead cap and just move on completely from Jimmy G and just go with Brady, which to me that doesn't make any sense because quarterback is the hardest position to fill. And, once Brady retires, you can't just, go off the street and just pull in some random guy and be as good as you were with the team that we have that's, pretty young. I think it wouldn't be a smart move for sure. I think that's just something that they shouldn't do, in my opinion, fantasy wise or real football wise.
Yeah.
All right, let's move over to the Redskins here, and I live here near Washington D.C., so I hear all this rumors and stuff. But Ron Rivera, the new head coach for the Washington Redskins, said he expects all three running backs to have a role this year. Of course, Darius Geis, Bryce Love, and Adrian Peterson. Ryan, I'm gonna go to you first because I know you were a big Geis guy. What do you think of this move or this note with Rivera saying that all three of them are gonna get some work? Is that gonna hurt all their value in fantasy?
Yeah, I'm worried about the Redskins in general. Honestly, this is for me the past couple years, and hopefully this will change with Rivera there now and some major changes in leadership, but. This is just a team in general I want to avoid. Questions at quarterback. It seems like maybe they're already considering moving on from Haskins.
Yep.
I love Geis' talent, but those injuries just don't quit.
Yep.
And he's still pretty expensive in Dynasty, even given his limited experience, the injuries the past couple of years. So honestly, I'm not sure there's a single player on the Redskins I really want on my Dynasty roster.
Good point. What about you, Foss? What are your thoughts here? If you had to own one of these running backs, which one do you want to own?
Oh, I'd want to own Geis, but I don't trust Love. I wasn't huge on him, and his injury history also doesn't do very well for him. AP, dynasty-wise, why? Other than a fill-in and injuries. But it'd have to be Geis, but I really would try to move him if I had him because people still love him. I love him myself, but it's not – it doesn't make sense. That team's bad.
Yep.
They need a lot of work. They're going to be getting rid of Trent Williams now, too. That's a big hole, man. I'm good on all those.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think honestly, if I had to own one at the price you can get them, I think I would go with Bryce Love just because he is so much cheaper than Geis is right now, and the upside is not quite as high as Geis, but I think that what you got to pay for him, if you can get anything. Draft him? Was that?
Did you just draft him this week?
I did. I think I got him in like the 21st round of our startup, so I figured that's pretty good value there. If he ends up being anything at all. I think that I paid a very low price for him, so that's the guy I would probably own if I wasn't own any of them. If I had to pay their price right now, so definitely it's Love for me. All right, let's go to Tampa Bay now, and Peter King reported that he expects Jameis Winston to be out in Tampa. We'll go to you first this time, Foss. What are your thoughts on Winston leaving, but then the pieces that are still there, like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin? What does it do to their value?
I think he could definitely leave, especially with all this. He doesn't seem like he has the coaches, but the coaches have his back because they were questioning that. Arians was like, you could do okay with or without him. So that's not a good sign for your quarterback. But if he's out, it depends who they get. There's been rumblings about Teddy Bridgewater there, which I don't see him as an Arians fit, but is he going to sling it down the field 16 times a game without reckless abandon to Mike Evans like we love to see?
Right.
I think it depends who they have. If they get a young quarterback like a Jacob Eason round 2, maybe he'll be throwing it up. Maybe we'll have to give O.J. Howard some reps. But it's a wait and see with who they have at quarterback. But you probably buy him a little bit cheaper than you may be able to before we find answers.
Yeah, good point. What about you, Ryan? What are your thoughts on this Jameis Winston news?
I'm kind of bummed out about it, honestly. It seems like it is kind of trending that way, that he's probably gone. And every time that Arians is asked about it, it is basically that wait and see. And, we're going to see who else becomes available. We're going to see, how the early market shakes out. And all of those are basically just telling us that they're not committed to him, that they are most likely ready to move on. So I don't think it's good news for Evans or Godwin or anybody else on that offense. We know what type of quarterback Winston is. He certainly has his troubles with the interceptions, of course, but that style and that kind of reckless abandon is what has helped those receivers to put up such big fantasy points. And some of the other names I have heard Bridgewater, like Ryan said, but Tom Brady has been mentioned there, and Phillip Rivers has been mentioned there. None of those options are very exciting.
Nope, I agree. I think if I had to choose one of them, it would be Rivers because he has that sort of reckless abandon, just throw it down the field kind of mentality as well. But he's also a turnover machine late in his career, so it wouldn't necessarily help their value for sure. All right, let's hit one more note here. We got Austin Eckler signing a 4-year, $24 million deal, which pretty much signifies the end of the Melvin Gordon era. Foss, if you're an owner of Melvin Gordon right now, what are you doing with him? Are you hoping he lands somewhere where he can be a starter, or are you trying to move him?
I think I'm holding him because right now you're selling as low as can be. There's always that post-free agent hype. If he lands somewhere before they draft somebody, or he lands in a situation that excites people, I think you'll have a better chance of selling high then. So I'm waiting on him. It's a little bit of a hold. Maybe try to buy him. But he's not somebody I'm really excited about down the line.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to think of a spot where he could just walk in tomorrow and be a starter. I mean, there's a few teams out there, but you look around the league, and it's just not that many places that need a running back that's going to cost a lot of money, especially with the draft class coming in this year with the rookies being as good as they are. You could pay a guy a lot less and get the same kind of value from him. What about you, Ryan? What are your thoughts on Melvin Gordon?
Yeah, I certainly agree. He's gone from from LA. He won't be back there. I think that's been the expectation all along. The Eckler contract just kind of sealed that if there was any doubt. I see several teams with openings who need that starter, potentially like an every down type back, which Gordon can be. The problem is what you mentioned there, Jeff, that why pay a free agent, especially at 26, 27 years old, when you can use your second round pick or maybe even your third or fourth round pick on one of these rookies who's obviously going to be much cheaper, most likely give you a couple more years than Gordon can at this point. So we already know he lost that contract battle last year when he gave up his holdout without getting a new contract, and I don't think it's going to go well for him this year either. Agreed.
It's gone downhill for Melvin Gordon. He was one of the top running backs going into the season last year. Then he held out, and everything else that's kind of happened since then, and he's kind of fallen off quite a bit. And I just don't see a situation where he's going to go somewhere and either gain value or maintain his value that he had at the beginning of last year. All right, let's get into some combine stuff, Ryan. You were there, obviously, so you got to see firsthand some of these guys. I want to look at some of the lesser-known risers or winners, if you will, from the combine. We know guys like Jonathan Taylor, of course. Was just amazing. He jumped up and he's the 101, basically consensus. But I want to dig a little bit deeper down into some of these other guys. Like we'll start off here with the receiver Chase Claypool from Notre Dame, of course, 6'4", 238. He ran a 4.42 40, which has not been done at a guy that size since Calvin Johnson. What are you thinking about Chase Claypool and your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a really impressive combine performance. Anytime you can do something to be mentioned with guys like Calvin Johnson, it's a good thing. But I mean, he's just not quite a player I'm ready to believe in, to trust as a real dynasty asset. His value didn't go up, or his ADP, I should say, didn't go up quite as much as I thought it might. We did some rookie mocks over at DLF. We did 10 prior to the combine. We did 10 since the combine. His ADP did jump 20 spots, but he was outside of that fourth round initially. So he was an early fifth rounder pre-combine. Now he's a early third rounder. So I think that's probably a fair value for him. I've seen the Miles Boykin comp, which is an interesting one. Of course, they were teammates a couple of years ago. Boykin kind of did the same thing, really came in unheralded and just despite going to Notre Dame and then tore up the combine. Yep. And we kind of saw how that went for him. Didn't necessarily translate, 1 year in. We don't want to throw him away yet or anything like that. But I don't think I'm ready to treat Claypool like a second round rookie pick or anything like that.
Yeah,
what if he gets a tight end designation?
See, that's really interesting, and that was the talk, of course, as you guys know, that he's such a big guy. His play style, basically a big slot type, that he could pretty easily make that move to tight end. And then when he ran that time, that talk seemed to go away. To me, that makes me want him to be a tight end even more. Yeah. So if he's the tight end with that athleticism, 99% speed score, the 40 in line with Calvin Johnson's, that's a player I'd be interested in at the tight end position. And honestly, in this class, he could potentially contend for a tight end one spot in dynasty rookie drafts.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at Evan Ingram compared to him a little bit. Yeah, 4.4 240. 36-inch vert, 125-inch broad jump. So they're very close all the way around. Same bench, 4 pounds difference. Claypool's actually heavier. So
wow,
they're very similar players.
Yeah, I don't think he feels as smooth as Ingram does. No, not as athletic. I mean, we were all surprised by these numbers for a reason. That athleticism, to me, it doesn't show up on the film in the games.
No.
So
I thought he was a 4.6 guy.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a little more Devin Funchess type, and of course, he was he went the other way. He was a tight end in college and transitioned to wide receiver. So I don't know. I'm just not quite sold on Chase Claypool yet.
Yeah, that comp of Miles Boykin is perfect because I know I was big on Miles Boykin. Ryan knows I took him in my rookie draft last year, and I still have him on my taxi squad. But yeah, I mean, he lit the combine up and kind of made a name for himself there. And really, you're right, he didn't do a whole lot this season. Obviously they were a running team, but even so, he wasn't really used the way I would hope that he was going to be used.
You talked me off the ledge on draft day with him.
Yeah, I did. I did. All right, let's move on to the guy that I think probably was the biggest winner of the combine, at least from what I hear from everybody. And Foss, we'll go to you first this time to get some thoughts on Mr. Denzel Mims from Baylor, 6'3", 207. He ran a 4.38 40. What are your thoughts on Mims?
It's definitely a base. We think he's fast, but obviously not that fast. He's another one. He just looks he's like long strider and so smooth when he runs. He just kind of gets by people. I don't know if he has the suddenness of some of the people who he outran in the 40, which I don't know how well that'll translate. I think that keeps him out of first round of the real draft a little bit. But I think he's a solid second-round guy with a ton of upside, especially depending on landing spot. But he's definitely – it's eye-opening seeing a guy perform like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know me. I said this before on the show. I don't watch much college football. I don't learn these guys' names until to the off season. I'm trying to do research for my dynasty teams, and he's not one that I was even looking at. Until I think the Senior Bowl. Of course, we had Andy Singleton on, and he mentioned him, so I kind of looked at him a little bit better. And then at the combine, he really did a lot of things there that kind of opened my eyes as well. What about you, Ryan? What did you see from Mims?
Yeah, it's hard to not like what we've seen from Mims. I think everybody that's watched him, that's watched film, that's watched Baylor games was impressed with him as a receiver. The speed certainly was a surprise based on what we saw at the combine last week, but tore up the Senior Bowl. By all accounts, was pretty much the star of the Senior Bowl practices, and then did this at the combine. So it really feels like he's checking every box. That's
right.
That's a statement that's thrown around, but I think it's really true in Mims' case. And yeah, certainly is a riser. He was the 2.12 rookie pick in our pre-combine mock, so 24 overall. Now he's 13 overall, essentially jumping up a full round. And
wow.
I think he's really going to be in contention for first round consideration in the NFL draft and in dynasty rookie drafts.
Wow, that's a big jump. Yeah, that's that's almost, like you said, a full round. It's pretty close to a first round pick there at the end. So that's some pretty good company to be in there right there. So yeah, definitely love me some Mims. Let's look at a couple of running backs here. I know there's one of them that you mentioned on your podcast a couple podcasts ago, Ryan, that I hadn't heard. I hadn't heard his name until to the combine. It's Darrington Evans from Appalachian State. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he was one that got my attention, and coming into the combine, knew the name, but didn't know a ton else about him. Didn't know a lot, much more about him, and dominated the combine. My co-host on the DLF podcast, Dan Meidler, sounded like he was a big fan. So I've been watching him this week, and I've been really impressed. Very elusive runner, undersized. I'd said earlier from the little I had seen, reminded me of Nyheim Hines, and kind of stick to that. Probably a better chance to be an every down back. Maybe in that Austin Eckler mode where he's undersized, but he can still be a 3-down back.
Right.
But was his receiving as good as Hines from what you watched?
Not from what I've seen, but but certainly adequate.
Okay.
All right, Brian, have you watched? Or sorry, Foss, have you watched any of them?
No, and I was going to try to sneak him in today, just didn't have time. That's why I was curious. I didn't get to see much of him. I had him on my college fantasy team this year.
Nice.
But I did not get to watch him play.
Nice. We got one more running back I want to talk about. And again, he was another one that I didn't have on my radar. And so I think I had him, second round pick, late second round. But he's kind of come up a little bit now as well. A.J. Dillon. Ryan, we'll go to you first. A.J. Dillon, Boston College, 6 foot 247. At that size, ran a 4.53 40, which is incredible. What did you see from Dillon this week or last week?
Yeah, we actually had Travis May on the Dynasty Blueprint a couple weeks ago to preview the combine, and he basically predicted this, that Dillon, even at his size, would go in and just dominate, and that's what we saw. 97% speed score, combining his size and his 40 time. He's another one, kind of like Claypool, I guess, the running back version. I'm just not sold on. He's not going to catch passes, plays very stiff. That athleticism, I don't think, comes through comes across on film, on tape. Not breaking many tackles, just that big, bulky runner. We don't see that speed in the games. At least I haven't. His ADP did jump quite a bit. He goes from 25 overall, so we're talking about 3.01 in a 12-teamer to 16 overall, middle of the second round, and he actually went in. He was a first-round pick in a few of those mocks we ran. I would not consider him in the first round at all. No. I still think he's a late day 2 pick in the NFL. I think at best could maybe even slide to day 3 as well.
Yeah, I listened to that podcast. You mentioned that he came on and did the combine preview, and I think he mentioned that if Tennessee was to franchise Derrick Henry for 1 year and then sign A.J. Dillon, that they kind of fit that same mold. What do you think of that thought? Do you think that his value would be any higher if he went to Tennessee?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they certainly have shown that commitment and kind of that game plan that they want to just pound the ball. So that could be a good fit. I mean, I don't see him ever being a Henry. Henry's that guy who, even though he doesn't catch passes, still just such a dominant runner that he still has a ton of fantasy value and dynasty value. I just don't see Dillon getting there, honestly.
Gotcha. What about you, Ryan? What have you seen from Dillon?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I was kind of shocked how fast he ran as well. But I mean, he had 866 career touches in college, and 21 of them were catches.
Wow!
Like he doesn't catch the ball. It's not his wheelhouse. I think he's a specialist where he's going to be part of a committee. He's going to get the short yard carries, red zone carries. I think he's going to be more of a hindrance where everybody hates him in fantasy football because he's going to be stealing your star running backs touchdowns, a la Garrett Blunt.
Yeah, good point.
So I'm not real excited for him. I think he has a role. I think he has a role on the team, but not as much for fantasy.
All right, let's flip the script a little bit here. Let's look at some guys that were highly thought of going into the combine that kind of hurt their value a little bit. And we'll stick with the running backs for now. In Foss, I'll go to you first here. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He ran a 4.6 40, which is a lot slower than people expected him to run. What are your thoughts on him as far as that 40 time, and do you think it hurt his value that much?
It didn't bother me. He's not really a speed back. He's more quickness, looseness. He survived off of cutback lanes, run with power, and he's a phenomenal receiver. And that's going to give you a ton of fantasy value. I think he's still in my top 5 running backs this year, and I think there's a nice size gap after him. So I think he's my last of my real 3-down guys.
Gotcha.
For Dynasty, and I think that 4.6 is beautiful because it just pushes draft value down a little bit. Yeah.
I'm actually curious, Ryan, if you got that information there as how much he get hurt by this 4.6 40 as far as ADP goes.
Yeah, first of all, I totally agree with Foss there. I don't think it hurt him at all. I don't know. Evidently, there were some out there who were expecting him to run 4.5s. I wasn't. He basically did what I expected him to do. So I don't see him as a combine loser at all. Actually, his ADP stayed the same. He was 7 overall going in, still is 7 overall, and he's the running back. I think that makes him the running back 5. I'm probably forgetting somebody. 4 or 5. He's after Akers. So, running back.
Yeah,
running back 5. That's right.
Big 3, yep, and then Akers. Okay, so it didn't really hurt him that much at all. Yeah, I felt like I heard a lot about his 4.6 40, and that was sort of something that I thought maybe he dropped an ADP, but I guess people are just still loving him. So that's good to hear because I think that in my dynasty draft, my main draft, that's kind of where I'm at, and I'm in that 5.6 range where I might be looking at Edwards-Helaire as my option there. So good stuff. Another running back. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ryan. What were you gonna say?
Sorry, I just there's been some really interesting conversation because, certainly some people have been bothered by the time on him, but I saw Sigmund Bloom call him the RB1 in the class this week, and I trust Sigmund and his thoughts a ton, so that got my attention, and I didn't get to have too many, like insider conversations when I was in Indy, unfortunately. Not quite in those circles yet. Working my way in, but right. I was involved in one, and the team rep I talked to said his team loves Edwards-Helaire and is hoping he's there in the second round.
Okay, good stuff. All right, let's talk about another running back, a guy that I was kind of high on. I had listened to, I think, to one of your podcasts, Ryan, and I forget who it was that came on that was all about Zach Moss. And then he went out. Barrett. Yeah, Scott Barrett. Yeah. Yep, he was all about Zach Moss, and then this combine happened. Ryan, what do you think of his combine, and did it hurt his value?
To me, it didn't hurt too much, but I wasn't a big fan. I know PFF's metric had him as the RB1. Scott Barrett's personal, data or tool or whatever he runs these guys through, had Moss at RB2. So yeah, those guys over there are certainly high on him. We know about the slow 40, kind of like Edwards-Helaire. I wasn't expecting him to be fast. The 4.7s, I think he gave us a couple of 4.7s, or maybe one of them got moved down on the official time. But anyway, it was pretty ugly. His ADP basically stayed the same. He was 14 pre-combine, 15 post-combine. I think that's kind of what you're looking at. He's going to be an early second rounder, most likely. Maybe a good landing spot bumps him up to the late first round of dynasty drafts.
All right. What about you, Foss? What are your thoughts on Zach Moss and his combine?
It moved down one spot for me, so not much. I think it shows he's a little bit more limited than a lot of people thought he was because he doesn't have the bigger play potential. But I think he's still a part of like a committee back and maybe not a huge one, but I think he's a rotational guy still at the position. But yeah, he's what he is, but like I said, there's that drop-off after your first 5 where there's a little more question marks. But he still has his pro day where he can make up for that a little bit.
Good point. Yeah, I think Scott Barrett, because he kind of hyped him up so much on Ryan's podcast that I moved him up with all that stuff that he was talking about. And then, of course, the combine happened. I moved him back from where I had him, but I think I have him now where everybody else has him. So I was a little bit higher on him just based on what I was hearing from Scott Barrett. And then I think I've moved him back to where he probably should be now. Let's move on to some of the receivers that are slight losers here, and I'm going to go with this first guy here on our list, Jalen Reagor. He kind of came in, thinking that he might, challenge for the fastest time, of the weekend, and then of course went out and did a 4.47 which is very disappointing. I think if we didn't think he was going to be one of the fastest, that's actually not a bad 40 time, but the fact that we kind of thought he might push that envelope a little bit, that it kind of was disappointing. Foss, we'll go to you first because I know you were kind of a big fan of Reagor as well. What are your thoughts on this 40 time that he put up?
I still love Reagor. It really affects nothing. Yes, I think him hyping himself up a little bit left everybody disappointed. But I mean, let's be realistic. He's still 74th percentile for the 40 with the weight adjusted, which is really good. But even when you watch him, he's more of a burstier athlete than a straight line speed. His burst score was a 99th percentile. He had a 42-inch vert and 138-inch broad jump, which were both 97 and 98 percentile. He's a super athlete, and he's so explosive. He makes guys miss, and that's how. Not because he can run a tenth of a second slower than we thought. He's still very fast. It affects nothing.
Is that how you feel as well, Ryan? Are your thoughts kind of similar to Foss's?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about a couple of guys who ran faster than we expected, and maybe that doesn't show up when you're watching the games. And I think it's the opposite for Reagor. Even though that 4.47 is still a great time in the big picture, I think he plays faster than that even. And you're right. It's just the hype. People people on Twitter were hyping him up, and he was hyping himself up. He compared himself to Tyreek Hill and some of those early week interviews. So yeah, it was disappointing, and that's fine to say. But he still had a heck of a combine, and his ADP stayed the same, 8 overall going in and post combine as well.
All right, good stuff. Ryan, we'll stay with you real quick. Are there any guys, winners or losers, that we haven't talked about that you wanted to mention? Anybody you have on your list that you thought helped himself or hurt himself this past week?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see. I gotta check my notes here. Check my list. Probably Antonio Gibson, the Memphis. I guess we're calling him a wide receiver. Worked out with the wide receivers. I know some are still thinking about him as a running back. Whatever he plays, I'm pretty impressed with him. We probably know the story there. Limited touches at Memphis, backing up, coming out of the backfield and backing up a couple of running backs there. Both Henderson last year and then the guys there this year. So limited touches, but super productive with those touches. I think he scored 9 or 10 touchdowns on like 70 touches, something crazy like that.
Wow.
It was really had a strong combine. Another one of those like size speed guys. So feels like he's moving up boards. I don't know if that's just Twitter hype or if it's real. We'll find out in about 45 days or so, and I can't wait.
Yep. What about you, Foss? Anybody that jumped in your rankings after the combine that you want to talk about?
I was going to say I love him. I think I immediately messaged you after I watched his film the first day.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's very exciting. I think Michael Pittman got a nice boost quietly. I think he was the guy because his numbers still weren't huge, but at his size, he just performed out of this world. I think he's going to be a guy who's an impact player who we're sleeping on a little bit. What round is he? Do you know what round he's going in by any chance, Ryan?
In ADP mocks?
Yeah.
He's a second rounder for sure. I'm trying to remember. I'll have to check how high he went, but I know he's in that second round range.
Okay.
And I was going to say, for getting hurt, I feel like everybody was so upset about the guys who didn't perform in the combine, like Dobbins and T. Higgins, where they've been down on them both a little bit because they didn't do anything, which is insanity.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They don't do anything, and they somehow are losers somehow. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I agree. I did an industry rookie mock over at Roto World, and I think I was picking 8th and got Dobbins with the 8th pick. So
wow.
I don't really expect him to fall that far in actual drafts. I hope he does. But yeah, Dobbins and Higgins, I don't think should be falling. Of course, we wanted to see them work out. But a lot of guys chose to sit out or had minor injuries or whatever the case. So to me, they're both still easy first rounders in Higgins' case and a top 5 guy for Dobbins. Just double check that Pittman ADP. I was wrong. He's 25 overall, so 3.01.
Okay.
In our latest ADP.
Nice.
I like that range.
All right, let's take a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about some landing spots for some of these top guys. So just hang tight, guys.
In the unpredictable world of fantasy sports, when all hope seems lost and chaos and confusion rule, one hero will rise. And change everything. Going for 2.com. Because no one remembers the extra point.
All right, guys, welcome back. I'm here with Ryan McDowell and Ryan Searfoss, and we were talking about the combine. We just did some winners and losers. Now I want to look at some of these top guys here and pick some ideal landing spots if you can pick where they're going to land. Let's kick off right from the top here with the big guy, the guy who basically jumped everybody and is now the 101. Foss, we'll go to you first. For Jonathan Taylor, if you were to put him somewhere that would be ideal, where are you putting him at?
Honestly, I like the idea of him in Miami. I think he's immediately the bell cow there. I know the team is kind of in shambles, but they have one of the highest salary caps in the league. What we saw last year isn't what they're saying. They're going to have a new quarterback, hopefully some new linemen. I think him going in there fresh with that new team where they're going to lean on him with a young quarterback, I think that'll be great for him fantasy-wise and kind of realistic.
Yeah, good stuff. What about you? Ryan? What are your thoughts on Jonathan Taylor, where he might end up?
Yeah, I had to call on my guy Ray Garvin today and have a little chat about this, get his input. So I'm going to steal some of his answers, throw in some of my own. I think there's we mentioned it earlier. I think there's so many landing spots, so many openings with open backfields around the league. The one Ray liked, and I agree with him here, for Jonathan Taylor is Indianapolis. The knock on Taylor, one of the knocks, I guess I should say, is a worry about, can he catch the ball? Will he be involved in the passing game? They do have Nyheim Hines that we talked about earlier there. Wouldn't be that pressure to see targets necessarily. So that would be a strong duo. And personally, I'm just not a big believer in Marlon Mack. So whether I don't know. His contract's pretty cheap. I wouldn't think they would just move on from him, but would certainly give them some options.
Yeah, that'd be an awesome place there with that offensive line. I couldn't imagine what he would do behind that offensive line. It would be a perfect landing spot for sure. All right, let's look at some of the receivers there. Of course, there's two guys that are basically 1 and 1A. We'll do them both at the same time just for the sake of time. And we'll go to you this time first, Ryan. For Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb, what do you got for these two guys as far as landing spot?
Yeah, for CeeDee Lamb, it's Arizona. Get him back with Kyler.
Good point.
They added a ton of wide receivers last year as rookies. Most of those guys didn't really work out. I don't think they're giving up on them yet, but they still need that alpha guy with Fitzgerald nearing the end. So pairing him back up with Kyler Murray would be great. Lots of options, I think, for Jerry Jeudy, but the Raiders need a wide receiver one, and they've got to pick early enough to make it fit.
Yeah, that's good. I've heard the Raiders quite a bit actually for Jerry Jeudy. That seems to be like a consensus landing spot. What about you, Foss? What are your thoughts on these two guys?
Well, I had the Raiders written down for Jeudy. It makes sense. They wanted a guy last year who was the best route runner in the league in AB, and that didn't work out. But why not go for a rookie who's the best route runner in his class? So it makes sense. And I have CeeDee Lamb for the Jets. They don't really have a number one. Sam Darnold has shown that he will force feed terrible receivers. So if he goes there and they have no other targets, I can see him being a target monster. May not be efficient, but he can win 50-50 balls. He can run after the catch, make plays. I think he could succeed there, and that's an up-and-coming team growing with a young quarterback. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, that's a good call there, too. I like that. I mean, I don't know if I like the landing spot necessarily for fantasy just because that they have that coach there that everybody hates, Adam Gase. But I do see where like it could be a potential good thing for Darnold, especially with CeeDee Lamb being that jump ball kind of receiver. I mean, we saw what he did, that ridiculous 360 catch that he made there. I mean, if Darnold just gets it anywhere near CeeDee Lamb, he's going to catch that ball. So I love that there. Let's do two running backs here. J.K. Dobbins and DeAndre Swift. And Foss, we'll go back to you first for these two guys. What are you thinking about where they might land?
For Dobbins, I have the Texans. I think with their big play offense, the way they throw the ball downfield, it really opens up the running lanes. Even though they have a great line, and he's not going to see many stacked boxes there. So it's going to be similar to Ohio State, where he can just break off big play after big play. And I think it makes his life a lot easier and lets him excel at what he does best off of limited carries because they don't run that much. But I think he's the kind of guy who doesn't need a ton of carries. And for Swift, I have the Falcons. I think he fits in perfectly and does a lot of the things we saw Devonta Freeman do, except for a lot better and faster. I think he'd kill in that offense, cutback with his cutback running their zone reads. I think he'd be great there.
All right, good stuff. What about you, Ryan? What do you think of these two guys, Dobbins and Swift?
Yeah, I had the Texans for Dobbins as well, so I agree with Ryan on that one. Swift is a little bit different. I think he might be the Kansas City guy.
Ooh.
And we know whoever is the Kansas City guy is going to gain a ton of value, and if it's one of these top 4 or 5 running backs, probably will end up as the 101. Maybe even jumping ahead of Jonathan Taylor if it's not him. So I'll go Kansas City for Swift.
Oh wow, that would be amazing. That definitely would be an ideal spot for him. I can definitely see where he would fit in that offense beautifully. And of course, we know what Reed has done with running backs in the past, and he would definitely turn Swift into a superstar. All right, let's do 2 more, and then we'll move on. Let's go to I'm gonna go to you, Foss, because I know this is your guy. We'll do Cam Akers, and let's do the guy we talked about before the break there, T. Higgins. So give me Cam Akers and T. Higgins landing spots, Foss.
I feel absolutely horrible about myself for saying this to Cam Akers, and I have him as the box. They have a terrible line, and we saw he was able to be an 1,100-yard rusher behind the 120th ranked offensive line in college football, who created 5 yards of running room for him the entire season. He's a good pass catcher. We don't know who the QB will be, but he's everything they've wanted and missed on all these average running backs for so long. And he can perform even when everything's a mess, and it kind of is there. And I think they can just feed him. Plus, his pass catching is what Bruce Arians loves because he's very underrated at it. I think he's really good pass catcher.
What about T. Higgins?
T. Higgins, I have to go to Baltimore. Had to keep my head around that. I want a big receiver across from Hollywood Brown, who he can throw it up to on the who Lamar can throw it up to on the outside. They haven't had something like that. I know Miles Boykin's there, but he's still not. He's fast. He's not that physical specimen like we see out of Higgins. I think it's a good compliment there.
Yeah, you must really hate your boy Akers, man. I thought you liked him. You're going to send him to another team
Akers,
with a bad offensive line. It's like
I need to send him up on my Florida State wall. But
that is terrible. All right, Ryan, what you got for Cam Akers and T. Higgins?
For Akers, I had Atlanta. I really kind of feel like the Atlanta, Houston, Tampa, Kansas City, like all 4 of those, any of these running backs could land in those, and they're going to get a value boost, and that's all those ideal landing spots. So for the Falcons, we pretty much know at this point Freeman is gone.
Yep.
They'll keep Ito Smith, but I think he's kind of lost his luster a little bit last year. He just is what he is. I'm not even sure he has a role if they draft somebody like Akers or Swift. And then for Higgins, maybe I've just seen this one too much in mocks, but another team that needs a big receiver, the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's true.
I do love the Ravens call, though. That would be great.
Yeah, I think the Bills and the Ravens are both in kind of that same vein there with some of the smaller receivers. They need a big guy there. So I like both those landing spots.
That's where I had him going to my mock, was Buffalo.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the mock you just did for goingfor2.com. Yep, definitely.
Shameless plug.
All right, so I put out before the show. I had put some things out on Facebook to get some question and answers for Ryan. I didn't get quite as much back as I had hoped, so we only got a couple questions here that I'm going to ask, and Ryan answering to the best of your ability here. So the first one I got on here is from Dan Turner on Facebook. Who would be your 104 through 106 rated prospects in this rookie draft? Not taking obviously landing spot out of the equation.
Sure. So mine's probably a little bit different than many others right now. I've still got Taylor at 1, but after him, I've got the 2 receivers, Lamb and Judy at 2 and 3. So then 4, 5, 6 would be the 3 running backs: DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, and Cam Akers. And for me, that's just kind of a team build, preference, I guess, that I'm almost always going to take the receiver over the running back if all things are equal. I expect Lamb and Judy to give you 10 years, a 10-year career, and we can't say the same about really any running back.
Yep, that's a good point. I think everybody falls in love with those running backs, and I'm kind of in the same vein as you. I like the receivers. I like to have that guy that just plug and play. You're gonna put him in your lineup for 10 years. You're just gonna have him there. Running backs, you got to worry about injuries a little bit more. Obviously, they have shorter careers in general, so I definitely like that call as well. I got another one here from Matthew Johnson, also on Facebook, and he wanted to know Jordan Love or Justin Herbert, who is your better prospect coming out?
I think for me it's Justin Herbert. I thought he was really impressive at the combine, and I definitely had some questions going in, but a lot more athletic than I realized, I guess, or than I had the impression of him. Ran well. And Love is another one. I told you I wasn't involved in many conversations. I heard the little Clyde Edwards-Helaire tidbit, and Love was the other one that I heard some talk about, and it wasn't good. Basically that his mental, the mental side of the game is not there, has trouble reading defenses, excelled in that pass happy offense in his, I think it was his junior year in 2018, I believe. And then when he was asked to kind of play a more traditional quarterback game in 2019, really struggled.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, I know you're big on these quarterbacks here. As far as you've looked at them for your draft guide there. What are your thoughts on these two guys?
Kind of similar. I loved Jordan Love before the season started because he looked awesome last year in that offense where he was just slinging it around and showing off his arm strength. But his decision making was so bad. He would just force it everywhere and throw a ton of interceptions. Almost kind of similar to what we've seen Jameis do for a while. Not a comparison, but I'm saying like in that same vein.
Right.
And Justin Herbert, like I said, much more athletic than I thought he was going to be. I was listening to Daniel Jeremiah today. He was saying that he tested very similar to Josh Allen on his athletic testing.
Nice.
Which is pretty good for that. And I think he's just a safer pick. I think he's going to be somebody you can plug in and play. If the Chargers got him where they're at, he could excel in that offense. I think he's a guy, right system, he could perform, where Love is just super boomer bust. You're taking a huge chance there.
So is Herbert, let me ask both of you this question, is Herbert the third quarterback in Superflex leagues? Is that where he's fitting in there, Ryan?
Yeah, that's where I would have him. And I do, again, maybe it's just one of those that I've seen in mocks so many times that I've just kind of accepted it. But I do feel like the Chargers are the perfect spot for him. Even if they give Tyrod 6 weeks or whatever it might be and then turn things over, I would be really excited to see Herbert in that offense.
Yeah, poor Tyrod. I think his whole career has been the guy before. You know what I mean? He's always the one that's getting replaced. That's a good call, though. I like that the Chargers landing spot there. What about you, Ryan? Is he your third quarterback in the Superflex leagues?
Yeah, he's my QB3, and I'm borderline have Eason ahead of Love right now, so he might be closer to the 5. But yeah, I like Herbert. I think he's kind of a lock for that 3 spot.
All right. We do have a question that just came through on Periscope for you, Ryan. The question is, where do you have Justin Jefferson in your rankings, and is he higher than Reagor currently?
Yeah, he's a little bit lower than Reagor, but definitely in that same range, in that second tier of receivers. I think I have him 10th overall, and that's about where he's coming in ADP as well. I think the Combine helped him. He was a guy, it's kind of weird, even on that, playing for the best team in the country, he was a little bit overshadowed because the story was all Joe Burrow, and if it wasn't Joe Burrow, then it was Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson was just kind of that forgotten guy,
right.
even on on the national champion team. So I think dynasty owners have been a little slow to come around on him, but he's definitely picking up steam now, and expect him to be a first rounder in the NFL draft and certainly in rookie drafts as well. So probably in that late first round range for me.
Is that where you have him as well, Foss?
He's my wide receiver 3. I love Justin Jefferson, and he actually was before the combine. Just kind of locked him in because I didn't think he was that fast. He catches everything. PFF had him as the number 1 contested catch receiver this year.
Nice.
Coming out, so I love him. I think I'm probably going to take him a little bit higher than most people, but yeah, I think he's a first round guy.
I think that wide receiver 3, most people seem to be in agreement on Judy, Lamb at 1, 2 in whatever order. And then you've just got so many options for that wide receiver 3. Some people still seem to love Ruggs, especially if you're relying on mock drafts or things like that. But Jefferson has his supporters, as he should. And Rager has his also. And then Chenault is, I guess, kind of falling with the injuries, but T. Higgins in there as well. So really, like wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 6 or 7 is going to be tightly packed.
Yep.
Does that make you want to trade back if you're in a dynasty league and in that 7th spot, or are things get a little more questionable?
Yeah, probably. If I'm at 7, I think Akers is locked in at 6, and I think he has a chance to crack the top 5 once we know landing spots and draft capital.
Yep.
So if I'm at 6, I still feel good. If I'm at 7, I want to move back because I've got Higgins there as my wide receiver 3 right now. I think Jefferson is actually 5 behind Rager, but there's not a huge difference between any of them. No. So if I can move back and pick up a second rounder or something like that, and grab one of these other guys plus something else, then yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good call. I like that. All right, let's go ahead and do the closeout segment, one of our favorite segments to do, the Forgotten Fantasy Player.
Get ready for GoingFor2.com's Forgotten Fantasy Player of the Week.
All right, Ryan, who you got for your Forgotten Fantasy Player?
Yeah, this was a fun one to think about for sure. I've told this story on a couple of podcasts, but I ended up going with my first ever Dynasty rookie pick, which was Byron Leftwich.
Nice.
That's probably shouldn't tell too many people this, but here we go. My first Dynasty league, I joined with a coworker of mine, and they were expanding their league from 10 teams to 12, and I didn't know a ton about fantasy. As I said, this was my first fantasy league, was this Dynasty league. So I think it was 2003, I think, was Leftwich's rookie year. And so usually when you have an expansion team, now I know that they should get an early pick in the rookie draft. So that's not how this went. I got the last pick in the first round and in each round, and did the unwise thing and took a quarterback, took Byron Leftwich. He was a player that I'd really enjoyed watching in college. If you're old enough, you remember watching him get carried around after tearing up that ankle, and all those memories without doing all the homework that I try to do now pushed me to take him. And so it was a rough couple of years in that league, but I did end up winning a title. It just took me a while.
Took you a while. That's awesome. I think that might be our first quarterback, right, Foss? I can't think of another quarterback that we've had that's on the. Yeah, I think we do running backs and receivers quite often, but that was the first quarterback that someone's picked. So great stuff there.
Was.
All right, guys, that wraps everything up. Let me just go around the room. Give us your Twitter handle, what you're working on, if you want to plug anything. Ryan, we'll go to you first.
Sure, you can follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. Do most of my work at Dynasty League Football, and we've got a ton of stuff going on over there this off season. We acquired FS Statistics back in the fall, and we are slowly releasing a lot of those tools that you probably remember from over there. Really excited about those. We've also recently partnered with Recruiting Analytics, which is a site that helps out college programs, helps out recruits, gets those players and teams matched up. But what we're really excited about is they do some video analysis where they can identify the max speed of a player on a certain play. Nice. So awesome. We've got those up at DLF. That's actually brand new today. Lynn Bowden, my guy from UK, was our first one we got posted, but we've already gotten several more.
Nice.
Just the past few hours, actually. So that's kind of breaking news. But we're excited to work with those guys and bring a little bit something different to our content.
Awesome, good stuff. Foss.
Find me at Ryan Searfoss at Fantasy FB Connect on Twitter. Find me here I think we're on Tuesdays mostly coming up.
Tuesdays, yep.
Normally Tuesdays. Then Dynasty Draft Room. Check out our draft guide. I think Jeff has a promo code for it. I'd like you to use his. That's why I didn't ask for one. But check it out. We put a ton of effort into it. I put in, 30, 40 combine stats in the last 2 days. Oof. So it's awesome. Definitely check it out. It's only $10. You can get like 2 cups of coffee for the same price instead of a lot of knowledge from a lot of really good guys.
Definitely. So, if you use my promo code is GF2. Pretty simple, going for 2, GF2. Then you save, I think it's 20% off, so it's going to be less than $8 there. So that's a great deal. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. I do want to plug our Tuesday show coming up here. We got John Lobb coming on. If you've been following my Twitter, we're doing a voting bracket style, March Madness style on these prospects, the top 32. We are down to the Elite 8, so check out the Twitter handle there and vote. And then when John comes on, we'll kind of break down each round as we go through those rookies. So great stuff. Ryan, I want to thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. And like I said, we've interacted a little bit on Twitter, but this is the first time we've ever spoke in person, and I appreciate you coming on the show, man. I loved having you. Really
appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me. Good, always good talking Dynasty and these rookies.
Definitely. All right, guys. For Ryan and Ryan, I'm Jeff, and we are out.